not wanting or being willing or just being fucking incapable of understanding what it is like to exist as a woman in this world. Let us have a little chat about entitlement. I feel like as I've grown older, I don't really take people's entitlement to heart. Like when I was like in my teenage years, I could take it really personally, but now I just simply don't have the energy. I don't have the energy to notice every time somebody makes a comment that is just like outright ignorant. So I try to ignore it, and I actually succeed a lot of the time. And before anybody comments like, why don't you stand up for yourself or for other people? I do in my own ways, but you have to choose your battles. You can't fight everybody over everything. First of all, you wouldn't even have friends if you fought everybody all the time. All people are ignorant to some extent. We all have blind spots that we could obviously work on. I'm not like excusing anybody, but some things you just have to let them pass. Yet sometimes, some days, you meet the kind of people that you just wish didn't exist. Like you're ashamed to be human because they also exist and are part of humanity. And I always wonder what these people, these very entitled people, what they have been doing for 30, 40, 50 years. It's like, what is your excuse? You're not 15 years old, still new to the world, and maybe you don't have parents that guide you well. What is your excuse to be an entitled prick when you're 40 years old? You could literally have read hundreds of books, watched hundreds of documentaries, talked to hundreds of people even by the time you're 40, but somehow you have just not reflected upon things, upon the state of society. It has just passed you by. And I truly wonder what these types of people, what they think about in their everyday life. Like, what do they worry about? What do they reflect upon? What do they aspire to? Like, how have you lived this long and not become a better human being? That's literally my question. And when I meet these type of people, I'm so grateful to my parents for pointing out even the smallest of inequalities when I was a kid. Just simple things like making me notice that some families live in mansions, and just beside that family, another family lives, but they live in a shed. And what might be the reasons for this difference? You don't even have to put it in terms of inequality. You can just be like, child, do you notice the differences and the similarities between these people and these people? You don't have to put it in a whole narrative of structural injustice or, you know, these big words that we use. If you just make a child aware of these things, they will reflect upon it. If you're never encouraged to be observant of these differences in society, your chances of becoming extremely ignorant increase. Unfortunately, if you don't have those adults, it doesn't even have to be your parents, if you don't have those type of grown-ups in your life that make you aware of these differences, your likelihood of becoming an entitled prick is just so much higher. What is so vital about this is that if you understand, even to some degree, one type of or one expression of inequality in one context, you will have an easier time understanding other types of inequalities that are more complex and in completely other environments than the one you exist in. Of course, we all have our blind spots. I'm not saying that somehow some people just end up being perfect when they turn 18. We are all on a journey of learning about other people's living conditions and their lack of rights or the unjust aspects of human existence. If we don't receive that guidance early on, I think that our motivation or willingness to even try to understand other people and their perspective immensely decreases. Especially if it's about injustices that will reveal to you how you are in a more beneficial or privileged position. You will be less likely to want to think about that and recognize it, because if you recognize it, your self-image will probably crumble or at least be a bit shaky for a while. I see a lot of children in Sweden specifically getting everything they want. Everything they point at, they will get it. From toys to phones to trips to makeup to I don't even know. When the parents don't want to deal with them, they just give them an iPad, because the iPad, I'm sure, will guide them through life. Basically, they're given no direction or guidance on how to behave respectfully and just see things from other people's perspective. And these kids are precisely the ones that grow up thinking that, or not even thinking, being completely convinced that the world is their oyster and they could never be wrong. Because mommy saved me when I was in school and the teachers had informed her that I was bullying other kids, but mommy, she made hell at school. Mommy made hell because I'm her little angel and I could never be wrong. So if mommy thinks I'm innocent, I will always be until my last breath. And sometimes you encounter these people. That's the point I was getting at. And because I'm a woman, obviously, some things will get me more worked up than others. The entitlement of some men when it comes to women's bodies is just, I'm not surprised because it's one of the main topics that I studied at university, but it still gets to me. And I've just recently heard some comments that really reveals how immature some grown men are. You would never get them to reflect on what it is like to be a woman in this world. So basically, in short, one of the situations, because there are several, but one of the situations that happened is basically I was complaining that I'm tired of being catcalled. Simple as that. There are probably a lot of you who understand this, just like not being able to even go for a walk without being bothered. I'm just trying to go about my business, guys. And somebody replied to me, or sorry, politely explained to me that I should just get used to it because I'm so beautiful. This is not the first time I've heard this comment. It has been expressed before. I literally have days sometimes where I wish I could be uglier and be less conventionally attractive. I wish women would go get Botox to become fucking ugly so that we wouldn't cater to the desires of men, so that we could just go outside and not be bothered by anybody. If I wasn't uncomfortable before, let me break this down. I am uncomfortable because men are catcalling me. I take the courage to tell a man about this, putting myself in a vulnerable position. And I'm telling him this because I'm asking for help. I'm asking for information on social codes or where to go, where not to go in order to achieve something in my life. And instead of helping me, you're gonna politely explain to me that it's all my fault. So now I am even more uncomfortable than I was before. Not only because of all the other men on the street or wherever, but because of you. And if I stop replying or ignore you somehow, depends on the situation, how can you not get into your little head that the reason for me ignoring you or not responding is because I'm so utterly uncomfortable in this world that I just want to be alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to other men. I just want to be alone. In situations similar to this, I've also heard that I should be grateful. I should be grateful that somebody compliments me and that I am receiving male attention. The reason why I was, and I still am to some extent, but why I was so obsessed with understanding the mechanisms of women's security when I was studying at uni was because of this whole situation, this whole not wanting or being willing or just being fucking incapable of understanding what it is like to exist as a woman in this world. In all types of situations, not in just being catcalled, just how you're generally treated, getting comments on your body, or how your boyfriend doesn't listen to you, how your issues aren't taken seriously by authorities, how your health is ignored by the healthcare system. Just you expressing how unsafe you feel is not being taken seriously reveals how utterly misunderstood women are. And I'm not talking about only Sweden specifically right now. I'm talking about the world in general. The lived experience of being anxious, just having this, it's like a tension in your body, like under your skin. There is just a general unwillingness to try to understand the lived experience of women. You will feel it's as if there is like electricity in your, like a tension under your skin that is just like crawling around because you're so worried, consciously or subconsciously, about men giving you attention that you don't want. This is why I try to be very attentive of other people's lived experience in the world. People who might not look like me, who might have grown up in a different culture, who live in a different country, who are from a different social class than me. I don't always succeed, but know that I'm trying my best because I know what it feels like to be on the other end, the receiving end of my ignorance, of the ignorance of other people. Even if I can just make it a little bit better, I will. If you are a young woman and you recognize all of the or some of the things that I've just addressed, I just want to reiterate to you and make sure that you know, nobody has any right to compliment you. If you don't want that compliment, you don't want it. You might have your reasons. You might think that person seems creepy, or you got something about them they might have done to other women, and you don't want their attention. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, that is enough for you to put up a boundary. You will know based on his response what type of person he is. I feel like we talk a lot about people not having a right to touch your body. That is very important, but I feel like most of the things that happen aren't even physical. It's literally people's words and their general demeanor and the way they move that also make us feel unsafe. You will notice so fast, with experience of course, but you will notice after a while which men are creepy and which men are like the most loyal ever. And if somebody makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to be around them. You don't have to meet them again. You don't have to spend time with them. It's your life, and at the end of the day, you're gonna be the one living with the consequences of being in certain types of situations. The guy's not gonna live in that lived experience of feeling unsafe, so he doesn't have a right to an opinion. I also want to add something else before I end this little rant. If you have the energy, you can, and I think you should, communicate when somebody makes you uncomfortable. Tell them that they made you uncomfortable. Because if nobody tells them ever, they won't have the chance to change. I mean, they could have the chance if they actually fucking cared about other people. You are not the determining factor, but it could increase the chance of them changing. Because sometimes you will be surprised. You will be surprised how well people take it. And they will actually even apologize. They will not get angry at you. They will not get annoyed. They will just be like, maybe embarrassed and just be like, oh, I'm sorry about that. In that way, you have made some difference. It's not your responsibility, but as I said, if you have the energy, communicate.